Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Emily Parker had never liked nighttime calls. It wasn't just the time, but everything they represented. The urgency, the unknown, sometimes the fear. For 5 years, she had worked as a night nurse at Mercy Hospital, a modest facility on the outskirts of Chicago. There, in the dimly lit hallways, she had learned to control crises, to remain calm in the face of pain and distress. Yet what she dreaded most was the oppressive loneliness of those hours when the halls emptied, the sounds died down, and the mind tended to wander. At that hour, the city was fast asleep, and Emily often fought off fragmented sleep, haunted by images of the patients she had treated, lives hanging by a thread, anxious faces. She sometimes thought of her own life, simple and discreet, punctuated by her night shifts, her solitary readings, and her rare visits to her parents who lived an hour away. That evening, just as she had finally fallen asleep, her sleep was abruptly interrupted at 3:07 a.m. The vibrating of her cell phone on the bedside table broke the silence of her small apartment. She jumped, her heart pounding, and it took her several seconds to make out the voice on the other end of the line. "Emily, this is Mark Williams, the hospital director. I'm sorry to wake you at this hour, but I need you to come to the West Pavilion immediately. This is urgent business. You're the only one I trust to handle this." Emily frowned. Mark Williams was a demanding man, sometimes difficult to approach, but a respected leader. He recognized competence and loyalty, and it was rare for him to call a nurse directly. This meant the situation must be serious. The serious tone of his voice left no doubt. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, she replied, her voice still numb, her muscles stiff with sleep. She stood up slowly, ran her hands under the cold water in the small bathroom, then put on her uniform and coat. The icy wind seeped under the door as she left, locking her apartment behind her. Light rain beat down on the deserted sidewalks, shining under the yellow streetlights. The city seemed frozen, silent, almost unreal. But for Emily, this calm was deceptive. Tonight, she felt deep inside that everything was about to change. When Emily finally arrived at the main entrance of Mercy Hospital, a strange feeling immediately washed over her. The large reception area, usually bustling with night staff and a few late visitors, was completely deserted. Not a sound, not a light in the security office, no guard at the reception desk, just a heavy, almost oppressive silence that hung in the air like an invisible presence. Emily set down her bag and walked in, the door creaking faintly behind her. Her footsteps echoed in the vast, empty lobby, where fluorescent lights flickered faintly, casting shifting shadows on the white walls. Her gaze scanned every corner, searching for any sign of life, but nothing moved. With a pang in her heart, she remembered that this was where she had spent so many hours, often running between rooms, reassuring frightened patients, fighting fatigue and discouragement. The sudden emptiness made her shudder. She took a deep breath and headed toward the West Pavilion, where Mark had asked her to go. The corridors she knew so well were lit, but something was off. The atmosphere seemed frozen, as if time had stood still. Not a sound, not a breath, not a figure. White fluorescent lights cast a harsh light on the walls, accentuating the contrast with the shadows. The chairs in the waiting rooms were empty, the assistants' machines turned off, the curtains drawn. Arriving at the door of the principal's office, Emily hesitated for a moment. She knocked softly, then a little louder. Still no sound. The door wasn't locked. Cautiously, she pushed it open and entered. The air inside was cool, laden with a familiar scent, a mixture of paper, cold coffee, and polish. On the mahogany desk, under a lit lamp, a neatly placed envelope seemed to be waiting for him. The name, Emily Parker, was handwritten across the front. Her hands were shaking slightly as she took the envelope and removed a folded letter. She read quietly, her heart pounding. "Emily, if you're reading this, it's because I'm gone. I had to leave to protect something bigger than all of us. Don't try to find me. Your mission begins now. Look under my desk drawer. Mark." A shiver ran through her. She approached the desk, slowly pulled out the drawer, and discovered a thick file marked in red, "Confidential." The cover was hardcover, and inside she found a stack of carefully filed documents. Internal reports, bank statements, electronic correspondence, all revealing a corruption scandal involving some of the hospital's top officials. She read damning evidence of financial fraud, of embezzlement of funds originally intended for the crucial renovation of emergency services, on which the lives of hundreds of patients depended. A lump of anxiety formed in her throat. Why had Mark confided this secret in her? Why should she, a mere night nurse, be the only one who could lead this fight? She felt the loneliness weigh heavily on her shoulders. Alone, she was vulnerable, exposed. But she also understood that backing down was no longer an option. She had to act. For the truth. For the patients. For the future of this hospital she loved despite everything. The next morning, after a near sleepless night of ruminating over the weight of responsibility that had just fallen upon her shoulders, Emily Parker picked up her phone with renewed determination. She dialed Sarah Mitchell, her longtime friend and colleague at Mercy Hospital. Sarah, a veteran nurse and passionate patient advocate, had always been a valuable ally, a clear voice in the hustle and bustle of the emergency room. At the end of the line, Sarah's warm voice immediately reassured her. "Emily, you look upset. What's going on?" Emily explained to him, cautiously at first, then with increasing urgency, everything she had discovered the day before: the letter, the file, the corruption scandal, Mark's disappearance. Sarah listened attentively, without interrupting. When Emily finished, she let out a long, serious breath. "Emily, you're not alone. We're going to find someone to help us get this out into the open. You know I'm with you." Without wasting a minute, they searched together for a lawyer capable of taking on the case. They called upon Daniel Carter, a civil rights lawyer renowned in the region for his fight against corruption, particularly in the medical field. Daniel was used to encountering walls of silence and fear, but he also had a reputation for being unyielding and a man of integrity. When they met Daniel, he looked gravely at the file Emily handed him. "This is more than just a financial scandal, Emily. It's an attack on the rights of patients and the staff who work behind the scenes. We can't let this go." With Sarah and Daniel at her side, Emily then began a long process of gathering evidence. She gathered anonymous testimonies from colleagues, internal documents, and reports that Mark had been able to hide. They contacted investigative journalists, hoping that the media spotlight would put pressure on those responsible. But very quickly, resistance began to be felt. Emily received anonymous calls and threatening messages. Unfamiliar cars were seen prowling near her apartment, and heavy gazes observed her comings and goings. Fear intruded on her nights, but she refused to give in. Every day, the tension mounted. The closer they got to the truth, the greater the risk seemed. Yet, deep within her, Emily felt a strength she'd never known. This fight, she believed, went far beyond her simple career as a nurse. She fought for the dignity of all those who, like her, dedicated their lives to saving others, often in precarious situations, without recognition. For those who suffered injustice in silence. Little by little, the hospital staff mobilized, some still hesitant, others ready to break the silence. The patients, touched by this fight for the truth, lent their support. The entire city began to take an interest in this case, which revealed the flaws in a sick system. The scandal finally broke out in the media. Reports denounced illegal practices, embezzlement, and the impact on the quality of care. Mark Williams, who mysteriously disappeared, became a symbol of resistance, a martyr for the truth. Emily, despite the fatigue, the threats, and the doubts, knew she had started a fight that would change everything, and she was ready to see it through to the end. Several months had passed since the tumult of that fateful night when Emily had discovered the hidden truth. The struggle had been long, exhausting, fraught with unexpected obstacles and hidden threats. But, little by little, the storm had calmed. The winds of change were now blowing through Mercy Hospital. Thanks to her courage, determination, and the unwavering support of Sarah, Daniel, and many other allies, Emily Parker was appointed interim headmistress of the school. It was an immense honor, but also a heavy responsibility, one she accepted with humility and strength. Upon her arrival at the helm of the hospital, she established a new climate based on transparency and trust. The opaque practices of the past were exposed, and the mechanisms of corruption were dismantled one by one. She opened spaces for dialogue between healthcare staff and management, and encouraged patients to express their needs and complaints without fear of reprisal. Listening became the cornerstone of the reforms. Task forces were created to improve working conditions, review protocols, and restore the dignity of every employee, from doctors to maintenance staff. Compassion, long forgotten in the cold corridors of the hospital, found its natural place again. Emily ensured that each patient was treated with respect and humanity, constantly reminding her team that behind every medical record was a life, a story. One autumn day, an official ceremony was held in the hospital auditorium to pay tribute to Mark Williams. A quiet hero, lost in circumstances that remain unclear, but whose courage had sparked the necessary revolt. His portrait now stood in the main entrance, a symbol of integrity and the fight for justice. Emily's eyes shone with emotion at the recognition. She remembered the fear mixed with awe she'd felt when she'd discovered his secret. Mark hadn't given up the fight, even in the shadows. Then, one evening, as she was leaving her office, tired but satisfied with the progress she'd made, her phone vibrated in her pocket. Heart pounding, she answered it. "Emily, it's Mark," said a calm, almost familiar voice on the other end of the line. A stunned silence followed. "I'm back. Thank you. Thank you for not giving up." A deep, sweet smile stretched across Emily's lips. Despite the years, despite the hardships, the fight continued. And this time, she knew she would never be alone again.